Okay, can I be heard? Can I be heard? Cool. Okay, so far I got one viewer. That's not bad. Oh, never mind. I think that's just me. Yes, I am popular with only myself. Okay. Wait for a couple more people to hop on. Okay, looks like I got somebody else on here. If you want, you can be feeling free to throw in a comment to see who it is I'm talking with. Alright, everybody, this is a Spade, also known as the Llama Sensei. Long story on that. Anyways, today is going to be me teaching how to properly hit the lab when you're learning a character. This is not really a necessity on like saying that you're going to be an immediate pro. I'm not a pro, but this is just to show how to properly hit the lab, and I'm going to break down everything that I'm going to be doing step by step. After the stream is over, I'm going to be putting in timestamps to explain further as to what I'm doing it and what to look for and what to look into when learning a character. Just fair warning, I don't have the best execution, but this does help. I will help explain tips on how to better execute certain moves. Chris, this is not going to be me doing streaming in battles. This is me teaching people how to hit the lab. You might want to take a look into this. Okay, so I'm going to be teaching it mainly with two different styles of characters. One is your basic motion controlled characters, which are characters like Ryu, Ken, Cammy, Rashid, and stuff like that use quarter circle motions. The other is going to be on how to use charge characters more effectively. The main one I'm going to be showing as an example will be Urian. And, alright, so, let's kick it. Okay, so for this, I'm going to be using catastrophic. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. I'm known to butcher some words. Well, at least not as bad as other people that I know. But anyhow, so we're going to be starting this off, and we're going to be hitting the grid, which is going to be your primary training style.
Let me hear your sweet scream.
Upon hitting the grid, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be breaking down everything. As you can tell, it's my first stream, so I'm going okay, before anything else, we're going to go into the basic settings, just so you can be able to see everything. From a buddy of mine, forgot to do that. Okay, so your basic settings. The most important thing that you're going to look into is the system that I use called NUSVC, which is N as in normal, U for unique, S as in special, V as in V trigger, and then C as in your critical art. What this is going to do is to basically break down everything about the character step by step. From there, I'm going to be explaining how everything works with that character. I'll even have the key inputs on the side of the screen, so you can be able to see everything that I'm doing. So we're going to start with Ryu's normals. All his, okay, so we're going to start with his normals. And as you can tell, just basic movements. And so this is his light punch, medium punch, heavy punch. Now, the reason why I like using the grid when I'm practicing and learning a character when I start to hit the lab is the grid itself. You see a set of lines and squares, and then at the very edge, you see a bunch of smaller squares. This ends up helping explain how to recognize where the hitboxes are to confirm your attacks. So you're going to have your light kick, medium kick, and then heavy kick, along with your jumping punches and your jumping kicks. Some moves will have unique properties, which is going to be your unique moves. This also includes your target combos that are normal, that are recognized with a lot of characters. So what I usually do is when I'm learning a new character is I start off with seeing just what everything does. I have crush counter on at random, and I'll explain that after I go through all this. So once I see how everything goes in, I look at what I do for what can cross up the opponent when you're jumping in the air, what doesn't work, what does work, what may hit overhead potentially. So that's going to be part of the normals. The uniques are what are called command normals. The only character that kind of really doesn't have command normals would be Ed, mainly because some of his command normals actually do become his special moves. He's the only exception to the NUSVC system. So we're going to go back in, look into the command list, and we're going to look at his unique attacks. And from there, you're going to see the collarbone breaker, solar plexus strike, axe kick, and then further down you see, series of buttons. And this series of buttons right here are your target combos. And for Ryu, he's only got 2. So, Jodan Nirengeki is going to be heavy punch and heavy kick. And then Jodan Sarengeki is going to be medium punch, heavy kick. And they make notes on it on the side saying that the properties of the move will change during V-Trigger 1's activation, which I'll get into that afterwards. So there's going to be, hold on one moment here. And this is going to be a very particular system that I'm going to be explaining in as much detail as I can be able to put in. I've actually been working on setting all this up as long as I have, and this is my first stream, so I'm kind of nervous and I'm just rambling right now. But anyhow, so alright, so normals, like I said, and by doing this with random, like putting counters on at random, you're going to also be able to see what moves are technically able to be used as a crush counter, which is going to be really helpful later on, as you'll see. So, medium kick, heavy kick. So you're going to have your punches, your light punch, medium punch, jumping heavy punch, jumping light, jumping medium, and when I can connect it, and jumping heavy. So then I go into what can cross up, and it'll actually be displayed on the screen as to what does cross up and what doesn't. So let's say for Ryu, we see that his jumping light kick, and I do connect, there we go, that his jumping light kick does connect as a cross up, and we also see that with his jumping medium kick when I do finally jump over him. Okay, so we have this going on where you have your unique attacks and your target combos, as I mentioned before. So we're gonna look at what these unique attacks do. So we started off with the collarbone breaker, which is a forward and medium punch. And if you notice, it hits twice, and from the direction that it hits, it is defined as an overhead. You can be able to set up the dummy settings in your options to find out which attacks are overhead, which attacks aren't. Any attack that is jumping is going to be defined as an overhead. Straight up, just straight up and straightforward. And again, that's just like a quick side note, this is for people that are just starting to learn the game. This is not meant to say that I am the all-knowing guru and all-master pro in this game. Oh hey, I got another person. Cool. So what's going to happen here is we just looked at what the collarbone breaker does, so we're going to see what the solar plexus strike does, which is this right here. And then there's also back and heavy kick, which is this right here. So, hey Liberated, hey Shell, but we're also going to be looking at looking to see what all the attacks do step by step. So as you were able to see from what I mentioned before, we're going to be looking at this and breaking everything down step by step and bit by bit. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to, after the stream is over, I'm going to be putting in timestamps to explain everything bit by bit on what I'm doing and how to properly put everything in, and how to put everything in properly. So we're going to restart the battle to clean the screen, and we have just pretty much gone through the N part and the U part of the NUSVC system. So next is going to be the specials. So we're going to go back into the command list and see what the special moves are finally. So we see the Hadoken, the Shoryuken, the Tatsumaki Simple Kyaku, Airborne Tatsumaki, Joden Sokudugeri, and Ishin, which is a V-Trigger 2 exclusive attack. So we're going to look at the Hadoken. Anything that's defined as an EX move, you just have to press an additional button of that type. So for an EX Hadoken, you would have to press two punches. For EX Tatsumaki, you have to press 2 kicks. And I'll show you what they all look like. So we're going to be starting off with the basic fireball, and depending on the different strength, depends on the speed, and so on and so forth. So then we also have the EX version. Then we have Shoryuken, which was right there, the heavy, light, and medium. And then we have this part here, which is the EX. Again, it's a long staking process, but this is actually, and in all honesty, helps me start with the starting and stepping stone to how I learned so many characters. So we did our Hadoken, or Shoryuken, and now we're going to do Tatsumaki, which is the Hurricane Kick. And as you can tell, each of these are different lengths and different distances. And as was mentioned before in the newsletter, the Tatsumaki can be done while you're airborne. And so from there, you have what's known as, from there, you can also see that there's different combinations that come in when you're EXing a move. And as you can see on the input screen, it's just pressing 2 buttons of the same kind. So I can do light and heavy, I can be able to do light and medium, and then I can also do medium and heavy. So from there, we're also going to see what is what the other move was, which was Shoden Shotorigeki, or I think it's one of it, but it's basically known as the Donkey Kick, and is hands down my favorite move from Ryu. And it's just a quarter circle forward and kick. So, seeing how each of these work. So you have your light, medium, and heavy. So then you're going to wonder, okay, so that was able to be EX, so what does the EX do? So whenever you do an EX, your character flashes yellow. It's kind of hard to do that with the whole frame setup here, but this lets you be able to bounce an opponent off the wall, so you can be able to further extend combos. So once we see that those are all the moves, then we go into, and so that was the S part of NUSVC. The V part, real simple, is just knowing the V trigger. So what they do explain it in the character demos, but if you're not wanting to do that, you can go into the command list and then look into the V system. And unfortunately, they don't even display it on there. Crap. Anyhow, so also during what you're looking at here in the V system, you see what the names of the V triggers are, and then you see what happens when you press medium punch and medium kick together, which is, for Ryu, it's called Mind's Eye. What Mind's Eye is, it basically allows him to parry an attack. And then this right here is called the V reversal, which is, it costs 1 bar your V gauge. And so while you're guarding, you're pressing forward and all 3 punches. Certain characters will either go with an attack, which is going to be all 3 punches, or with all 3 kicks, depending on the character. It's all unique to everybody there. So we're going to see what V Trigger 2 does. So as you can see here, his hands are starting to glow with lightning, and he goes into a parry. What doesn't get explained is that when you parry an attack, it goes into a counter state, where you can go in for a counter attack to further the damage, to further your damage output. And when you're using V gauge, be mindful that some V gauges are one-shot deals, and some of them are not one-shot deals. Some of them will end up being trying to find the right word here. I can English, I know I can. Where they can be canceled into and out of each other, and some of these V triggers can be able to last for X amount of times that you can be able to execute them, and then, or they can end up being used for just a one-shot deal, depending on what the move is. So let's say for something like Zangief, his V Trigger 2 allows him to greatly enhance the power in his spinning pile driver, or screw pile driver. So pretty much what ends up happening here is you're going to see that, anyway, sorry, just got off track on something. So next part of this is going to be the C part of NUSVC. So we're going to look at what in the command list, you're going to see what the critical art is. And so you're going to see Shinko Hadoken and then Denjin Hadoken. And this costs your entire bar of your first V trigger, and it also requires a full bar of your EX. So from there, you're going to end up with seeing, well, I'll show you what this whole thing in the NUSVC system does and how it all works for motion-based characters. And then I'm going to do the same with showing Urian for further on. So we're going to go with it's 2 quarter circle forward motions and then a punch. That was not it. There we go. And as you can tell, it took the entire bar of your critical art, or your EX meter, and you're able to use, depending on the character or depending on the move, you can be able to further enhance it with other, like with other combos. So this is the beginning part of what NUSVC is. Learning each part step by step in in the training mode, or what I call the lab. So learning this part, you're going to end up with knowing what your normals are, and now is where the system starts to flourish. So you're going to see going from your normal to uniques, specials, V-trigger, and then critical art. What this is all going to do is you're going to teach yourself step by step what combos into what properly. And using the attack data that's displayed on screen, you're going to be able to see which moves can combo and which moves can't combo, depending on the recovery of frames. That part gets a little bit more complex, and I'll try and create another video about how to understand frames better. If not, I can always recommend someone to check out and go to. So from here, you're going to see that you can be able to do 2 light punches, or 2 medium punches, once I can get it. There we go. And the one thing I don't like about how this frame system works, though, is that the numbers go by too quick on seeing what the recovery is. But let's look at with what was shown before, which was your target combos. So we're going to look at medium, heavy, and heavy. And so when you look at the target combos, once you go into the full stream of the NUSVC system, you're going to want to see what can and what cannot cancel into each other. So the more traditional thing that a lot of players can do is they can do crouching medium kick into a specials and do like a fireball. So you can also cancel into EX. So you can see that also works with this. And that was a stun. Okay, so now we're going to look at what moves can and can't combo into each other. So what you can see here is that medium kick is able to combo into all of his specials. And so we're going to see if I can execute it, see if it can work with comboing into super, or the critical art. And this is how the NUSVC system flourishes. You take one part and then you add everything on top of it, and then you take the next part and then you add everything on top of it, and then you just keep going all the way through until you can't be able to see what you can combo with the character anymore. So let's go with something a little bit more, I guess you could say, advanced, and we'll see what we can be able to do here. So let's try with medium kick, or crouching medium kick and donkey kick, and see what can go from there. And as you can tell, that didn't really combo, but that's okay. So let's take a look at what can combo into donkey kick. And like I said, we're taking this piece by piece and step by step with everything about the character. The more you know about your character, the more you know how to handle that character depending on the situation. Kind of like quoting from Chapter 1 of The Art of War, know the enemy as well as you know yourself, if not better. So we're just kind of flipping it on its head at first by saying that you got to know everything about your character first before you can really go against other players. The main thing you don't want to do is just go in and start and basically seem like you're like bashing your face into your controller or arcade stick or whatever you're using. So let's take a look at seeing that the crouching heavy punch can combo into the donkey kick. And that was not crouching heavy punch. Neither was that. So we're seeing that all this can combo into each other, which is good, which is what we're wanting to see. So we're going to now look at seeing that those two parts work together. So let's say, can this combo into something? No, it can't. So I'm trying everything that I can, and nothing is working, which is good, because now we know that we can be able to use that as a way to set something up and set a pressure onto the opponent. So we're going to look at what the properties on crouching heavy punch now, and this is basically like a Cliff Notes version of it, but you're going to try and do this with every part of all your basic moves, all your unique moves, and everything else like it. So we're going to go into, let's say, his solar plexus first, which is forward and heavy punch at the same time. So and we see that this part combos. So you want to try and look into saying, well, if these two parts combo, what about learning that, well, taking in what we just did before, seeing that the heavy punch, that crouching heavy punch, was able to combo into donkey kick, can that work all together? And we're going to find that out. So we're going to go, that wasn't it. Okay. That wasn't it either. As you can tell, I don't have the best execution in the world, and I apologize for it, so. And I see where I'm screwing up now. Okay. So we see that this part works together here. So we see that all works together. And so we're going to try and see if this works all together with the donkey kick. Once I can get it going. Again, I apologize, I'm not like this is all just impromptu and everything, but I'm trying. So let's go with this again. And that didn't work. So we're going to see that this all works together, and we saw before that the Shoryuken does work. So you can see that that does a good amount of damage to work as a good combo to practice and work with. One of the things that I usually tend to do whenever I do practice a character is, once I go through this NUSVC system, I practice everything on one side, and then I go into the other side. But anyhow, we're just going to go into seeing how other combos and how other moves can work in tandem with each other. So we're going to go with a crouching, we're going to try and look at what crouching medium punch does or crouching medium kick goes into with the donkey kick. See what we can do with that. So your normal donkey kick sends the opponent flying away, so that's good. And as mentioned before, the EX donkey kick can be able to set the opponent bouncing off the wall and then back to you. So we're going to try. So we see that bouncing the opponent off is working really well. So again, it's all a step-by-step thing. We're taking what we picked up from the special, and then we're also going to be bouncing it back off of, so we're going from one special to another special. So we're still using how the NUSVC works. So we can be able to see that that was the heavy punch, heavy kick setup there. So we're going to see that crouching heavy punch does work, in fact, with the EX version of donkey kick, which allows us to go into other combos. And so it's all going to be part of what to take from one aspect of it to take into another aspect to help extend your combos and to try and look into what maximizes damage. With what we saw earlier, we had we had the jumping medium punch. We had a medium punch in the air. So what makes that so interesting? So this allows the opponent to be floated up, to be hit twice, and it kind of lets them float down. As you can tell with how she's jumping up and down here, she jumps off pretty quick. So you can notice she kind of floats off at that. So we can see that this could be canceled. that this can be worked to extending combos. So we want to see what can work and what can't work with what extends combos into. So seeing that the EX donkey kick may not work, and it'll take a couple of times to try it. And as you can tell, I am completely missing. And so it's all trial and error from this point. So you can see that doesn't work, but we see that, so we can take a look that, well, if the ground specials don't really work, well, what about a mid-air special? So we're going to see how that works with the mid-air hurricane kick, which was mentioned before. So once I can be able to jump and connect, you see that I'm trying here, and it's not really able to work. So what can we be able to do about that? Well, if you see that if something goes into 2 hits, most of the time, that first hit can be canceled into a special. This doesn't get really mentioned that often in other games, but it's something to look into further down. So we're going to see that you can be able to cancel into your special, so you can be able to cancel into your EX special. So that's always a good thing to know if you have the meter. And it's going to be turned off to the other side of the screen, which helps sell to your fireball game at that point. So let's take a look at what may work. Well, we also see that you can hit somebody while they're in the air. So let's take a look at what we can do and see that the normal doesn't work. So let's try the EX version of the Shoryuken to see if that does connect. Once I can get it down. There we go. And you see that it does work. So we see that we can be able to combo these parts in together. But let's say if you want to try and look at what can combo with the super. So let's try to take a look at this jumping medium punch again. And it does. So that's always a good thing to know and to learn. Again, this is everything that I do when I'm learning a new character or learning a character in general. So it's always a good thing. And I see that there's a couple other people on here. If you guys want, you can say hi. And I will continue to do absolutely horrible and embarrass myself here on stream. So let's look into now the charge aspect of characters. There's more or less in fighting games. There's 3 different types of characters. Well, primarily with Capcom's fighting games. You have your motion-based characters, your charge-based characters, and your 360-based characters. 360-based characters I will look into explaining a little bit further in detail if you guys want me to. But for the sake of this, we're going to be just sticking with your normal motion-based characters and your charge characters, or characters that have charge moves with them. With a character like Yuria, we're going to go into the same steps that we just did before with NUSVC. And we're going to take a look at what his normals look like, what his target combos look like, what his specials look like, what his V-trigger looks like, and then what his critical does. And see what we can be able to work with from there. Some characters do work better using, are able to be more effective when they don't have to use their critical arts. Some characters are able to use their critical arts a lot better. It's just depending on the way the character is more or less designed, and then looking at the way that you play yourself. So we see that. So we're looking here. So we see that Urian has this is standing light, standing medium, and then standing heavy. That was a stun. Okay, I'm gonna take off stun so I can be able to explain this better. There we go. Okay. And we're going to restart. Okay. So we see that having crush counter on at random, we see that his standing heavy punch does have capability of doing crush counter. So we're going to take a look at the light. It's medium and it's heavy. And again, we're looking at this bit by bit, step by step. And as you saw here, there was a part where you saw him be able to hit twice, so that's something good to know that you can be able to use that for later on. And sorry about constantly hitting restart and everything like that. But anyhow, so we're going to be taking a look now at what his, like those are all his normals. So now we go back to the command list, and we look at, you see that his special moves look like that, but let's take a look at, the kick is not an overhead, surprisingly. His only overhead is actually his forward and heavy punch. Again, like that's one of the only things I do wish that Capcom would be able to explain a little bit better with the, like, you know, when they do their fighting game setups, like explain what moves are overheads and which moves aren't. But if you write down, just like, even if you have to be shorthand, what you look at for characters that you're trying to learn, then you can be able to make it like a quick side note, like say OH is an overhead. So we can be able to keep that in mind and then be able to kind of ingrain that into our heads. So we're taking a look at what his unique attacks are. So we see that his Quarrel Punch is something, you know, so we have this. So we have Quarrel Kick, Terrible Smash, and then his target combos being Killer Straight, Break Rush, and that's it. So we're going to take a look at what we see here. So we see that his forward and medium punch is right here, and this does look like it could be potentially an overhead. We can always be able to, you know, take a look at that later. And then forward heavy punch is this right here, and you can tell that is just a beastly overhead look. That just looks like a beastly overhead. So we're going to go hit the restart battle, and just to let everybody know ahead of time, you're going to be seeing me go to the pause menu a lot. Again, I apologize, but it's going to be the nature of the beast. So we also see that we have this move right here, and that's it a couple of times, see, and like within your, like your 6th or 7th time, you'll see which moves can and cannot be used as a crush counter. So we see this here, and we're going to see that you have that this move right here is actually crush counter. So from there, we're going to go into what his target combos are. And I'm using an arcade stick, so I don't really have the so I don't really have like an R3 button to reset everything. So we're going to look at what his target combos are, and so this is light punch, medium punch, which is pretty good. And so his other one was forward and medium punch, and then forward and heavy punch. And this is a good mix up to go high and then overhead. So they have to be standing for both parts of it, which is a good throw off if you keep your opponent crouching. And so with, you know, going before, we can be able to see that his crouching, his jumping leg kick is in fact his cross up. So always a good thing to know. Now, the big part that I was asked by Spectre here earlier was how to do what's known as the charge buffering. So first, before anything else, we're going to go back to our favorite screen here, and we're going to see the command list, which is where you see his special moves, which is Chariot Tackle, Violence Knee Drop, Dangerous Headbutt, Metallic Sphere. And Then you have what you see with his V skill is, which is his Aegis Reflector. And as you see here with the Aegis Reflector, they hold different properties. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. This is my first time doing this whole streaming thing, so I'm kind of... okay, hold on. Let me see if I can be able to pump the volume. Okay. Let me know if you guys can be able to hear me a little bit better. I don't know how to really change the settings here. Hold on, let me just check something. Oof. Okay, so this is... let's see here. Audio sharing. Include microphone audio. Yeah, sorry about all this. Okay. Yeah, with the dummy button, I have a low voice, so I apologize for that ahead of time. Just trying to set the audio up here real quick to help a little bit better. So let's try that, and that should be able to do a little bit better. This might, okay, I just increased the volume on the mic a little bit, so that should help a little bit more. So next what we're going to do is look into seeing his specials, which is seeing that his light and his medium do a horizontal fireball. So his heavy, though, does one that's at a kind of like a 45-degree angle. So we want to keep that in. So we want to keep that in mind and keep that noticing to see that that can be used for, you know, using an anti-air. Someone's going to be coming at you. But if you saw on the command list, you'll see that property changes when you hold down the charge. So, and if you're noticing it, you know, it goes a little bit faster. Same thing with the heavy. So keeping that part all in. We also see that his crouching heavy punch does 2 hits. So that's going to be important for later on, which I'll explain. So we're going to take a look at what his other specials are, which are his charge moves. Now, when you charge, like when you go for a charge against an opponent, it's normally, they say, you know, hold back for 2 seconds according to the timer on the screen. To be able to initiate the charge. This was really infamous to know with one of the first charge characters being Guile in Street Fighter 2. But as time went on, people found out ways how to buffer the charge out, which I'm going to be showing you. And by doing buffering, you can be able to, a good amount of times, link multiple charge moves into the same combo. But, so let's take a look at what, before I go into that, we see that this goes into a really hard, this goes into a hard shot, into a knockdown. So that's something to keep note of. So let's take a look at what his headbutts do. So this was light, medium, and then heavy. Now if you notice, I did them a little bit faster than what the 2-second time charge was, and I'm going to explain that part right now. What charge buffers do is for most characters, you hold down back so you can hold down, so you can be able to charge both down and backwards. While you're doing this, you can be able to go into seeing what your you'll be able to see that while you're holding down back, so in case the opponent attacks, you can still be able to block and then go in for your upward charge. What makes this really good as a tech from the tech point of view, though, is when you're learning a character that uses buffers or that uses charge moves, you can be able to hold down and back at the same time. So as long as you're holding the back part of a charge, most times when a character has the down back part, or has like a down up charge like Guile's flash kick, or with hearing with his headbutt, you can be able to press up and punch, and then while you're doing that, you can be able to hold up and back, and because you're still holding back while the move is going out, you're still technically charging the back motion of a move. So that's going to be important to notice when I try to execute one of his combos. The next part to do is like knowing that this move here does knockdown, so that's good. So let's take a look at what the EX does. Okay, so EX looks like, you know, it just hits a lot harder, so that's always a good thing. Again, I'm not trying to be like some kind of all-knowing master in this game. I'm just basically trying to help a lot of new players learn the core mechanics on how to practice and learn a character effectively and efficiently. So let's take a look at what his B trigger is. This is what we saw with the Aegis Reflector. So we see the Aegis Reflector puts the opponent behind them, behind the opponent, and then you get 2 charges of it. So, and then if you do the Aegis Reflector again, and you hold back, it goes in front. Pressing down will put the Aegis Reflector above. So what's really good about this is that the Aegis Reflector not only helps with doing the higher damage combos and extending combos for the so when you're learning other things, so let's say with what I was showing before, you can be able to charge buffer, or you can be able to do multi-charge buffers. With what I was mentioning before, there was a set of things that you could be able to do with a character like Guile to throw sonic booms out in less than a 2-second time. This was known as the 1-second sonic boom trick, which was very well explained by Sean Gilly way back in the day. And what you're doing is, while you're holding back, so let's say we want to try and do multiple charge tackles. So we can go to do, and as you can tell, that was all less than 2 seconds. So how I did that is, as I'm holding down back and I press forward and kick, once I press kick, I'm immediately pressing back again. And you'll able to see that on my screen, like on my input screen. So I'm going forward and kick, forward and kick, forward and kick. And as I'm pressing kick, I'm immediately pressing back. So this helps put in the charge. This helps initiate the charge time, and it also decreases the charge time at the same time. Keyword today is time. And so what's going to happen here is we're going to be able to buffer out some moves and see that we can be able to learn how to combine some of these things together. And again, this is all with experimentation. So let's take a look at this crouching heavy punch again. And you see that I can't be able to get it right, but so we can see that you can be able to, in fact, be able to combo into the EX part. So that's a good thing. But let's go back to what we do with the NUSVC system. So we're seeing that our normals can be able to, in fact, charge their combo with your Aegis Reflector. And so let's take a look at, so we can be able to take a look at the other parts and see that so that other moves can be able to combo into Aegis Reflector as well. So now we're going to take a look at if we can be able to put everything together. And if it doesn't work the first couple of times, then that doesn't mean that the combo can't work. It may mean that you're not executing everything properly. And from there, it's all about learning how to just learn the timing and how to get everything going properly. So let's take a look again at what we can do with this, at this EX headbutt. Now, what we're seeing here with this EX headbutt, which was not that, what we're seeing here with the EX headbutt, it can be able to combo, so that's a good thing to know. Now let's break that down a little bit further. So so we see that doing the crouching heavy punch can also work with the EX chariot tackle. So let's see what happens if we try to put everything together, and let's hope to some higher deity that I can be able to execute this properly. Alright, so we've got this right here. So all that works together. And when you can get everything going, once I can get it going on this side. Now, how I was able to do all this, I was able to connect everything together even though it looked like using two charge moves, especially with them being so completely different, to combo in together. As I'm going for this, I'm buffering the down and the back motion, which is going to be the most important thing to learn, which is going to be the most important thing. While the opponent is airborne from this right here, you saw that I was still holding up and back while I was doing the EX headbutt. Now, because I'm still holding up and back, or because I'm still holding back while I'm doing the up and back motion from the headbutt, I'm still charging back. So this allows me to buffer my EX chariot tackle. So once I can get that part out, and I swear to God, I can get this. There we go. So we see that this all can work together. So let's see if we can be able to add in something a little bit different, or something a little bit extra to maintain pressure, especially with a character like Urian. And for Eric, it's pronounced Urian, not urine. Just because he had a pea-colored skin in Third Strike doesn't mean he is pea. Anyway, so alright, so we can be able to see that we have this here. I swear to God I can get this. So we have this immediately set up to we can be able to see that all this can work together in tandem and in combination. And from there, with certain characters like Urian, once you get your basics going on what you can fully do with actually, let's do something a little bit fun here. So we're going to be doing, we're just going to have a little bit of fun on it and see, and just experiment with how Urian's Aegis Reflector works. So this is where, hitting the lab goes into full property. If you notice, I haven't gone into anything about the critical art yet, and I'll get into that in time. I'll get into that in a moment. But let's say real quick for the critical art, it's a very vertical based sweeper. So that's always good to know, and it's also really good to see that because it carries and controls the vertical axis, your opponent does not want to jump in. So what people tend to do when they really rush into an attack, it's more or less kind of like dance, like both players want to take the lead. So what you want to do as like your core strategy is to put your opponent into a position where you're the one taking the lead and you're controlling the pace. That's just, my own personal view on it. But to have a little bit of fun, let's take a look at that. So we can be able to, you can see that the Aegis Deflector can be able to jump and bounce the opponent around. So let's take that a little bit into another. So we can be able to sandwich the opponent in, and you can keep that as a guard in front of you. So let's take let's see here. Crap. So let's take a look at. So you can be able to close your opponent in. You can be able to. There's a lot of things that you can do depending on what you want to pick as a setup. Important thing, not just going in and just mashing the button, but that is the most important thing. But let's take a look at, let's see if I can be able to do this here, just as like an experiment. Yep, screw that up. So seeing that having both Aegis Deflectors out, we can see that you can that they bounce back and forth, and they're at a high enough range where you can literally jump right inside and underneath them. So let's see if this can. So let's see if we could possibly pull off the critical art while they're bouncing around in the air with this Aegis Deflector. And we see that it does in fact work. Is it an effective combo? No. Is it flashy? Kind of. Is it funny to look at? Yes. So it's one of those things that you want to take a look at, take a look in depth with, and we're going to see that, using, so if you saw this before, so using the NUSVC system, we saw that we were able to go from the crushing heavy punch, this part here, into using the V-trigger twice, and then go into the critical art. So that's your core and your primary things that you're wanting to do. Once you learn your basics on the character, then you can start to mess around and look at everything that you're doing, and take a look at everything that you can do, everything that you can't do, and look at as to what plays safe and what works best to your style. You may know a lot about a certain character, but it may not work in particular to you, and that's okay. That character, either you have to learn how to adjust and play that character to a way that suits your style, or you may have to just use that character like on the sideline or put it on the back burner just in case you want to do something else. And bump it. Since I have the time, let's take a look at 360 characters like Zangief. And I'm going to be using the default costumes for a good, for some of these characters, as to not disturb anybody just yet, because I am a sick-minded individual. So hence why there was no Easter egg version of Urian or anything like that. Usually with Zangief, I use a very, very disturbing version of the character, but I just use that just to have fun. So we take a look at what these new triggers are, and what you want to do from there. And this is the very core beginning. When you look at what your V-trigger does, that's when you can be able to really take a look at how everything can and can't work, how everything can and can't work, as to what works better to the situation, or your own fight, or your own style that you play. So we're taking a character like Zangief, and he's what's called a 360 motion-based character. What this means is you have to rotate the controller or the stick, whatever you're using, a full circle to get and press either punch or kick, depending on what the move is, to get your throw. So we're going to take a look at Zangief, and with a character like Zangief, or with command grab based characters, you want to look at what the maximum distance is for the grabs. The key thing to learn about grapple characters like this is that the lighter the attack, though the less damage you have, the longer range you have to commit to the move, that you have the move come out. So let's take a look at Zangief here with his well, you know, again, going with NUSVC, looking at the normals. Seeing this here, seeing that's the heavy kick, that's the medium kick, that's the light punch, there's the light kick. The medium punch seems to be more like it can be set up as like air to air. And then the heavy punch also seems like you can do that. Then we go into the uniques, which is his body splash, his hopping knee, and we're going to go from there into how to do like what his, like the stuff about his 360s. And you know, we'll go into the command list as always and look into the special move. Now, as you see, the screw pile driver, or the SPD, is a full circle around plus punch, but the property changes during the V trigger. So that's something to really look into and to understand. So we're seeing this here, and we see something here called Borscht Dynamite, and it is a 360 while you're in the air. Now, most players will be able to do that on like off the bat, that are not experienced with how to use characters like this. So, as you can tell with this, but now how to do it while you're on the ground, there was a little bit of what I call input leniency that was put in for a character like Zangief, where you can in fact be able to do about like 4/5 of a circle and go into the grab. So let's take a look at so let's do so it goes from forward to down, forward to down back to back, up, and then up, forward, and then punch. So, and then going back to forward. So doing that is what's called a 360 motion, mainly because you're rotating the stick or what you're moving with 360 degrees. So let's take a look at how I did that. Was, as you can tell here on the input delay, or on the input, I more or less stopped myself at up back, and I pressed punch at the exact same time I pressed up back. This allowed me to be able to get the grab going. So knowing that now, let's take a look at seeing this right here. This is just a half circle. The one thing when you are hitting the lab, it's always really good to see what your inputs are. So when you realize that you're not doing something right, you can take a look at what your inputs were and see why that move wasn't coming out properly. So we're seeing this right here with Zangief, and so let's go about right here. And his light punch range, and Eric, I hope you see this, this is not Zangief cheating. This is the actual range of his light screw pile driver. It is ridiculous and stupid, and I love it. So let's take a look at what what this new V-trigger does real quick. So along with having a ring announcer, this allows you to get your next screw pile driver to do a much higher amount of damage. If I'm not mistaken, we can actually be able to calculate this now. So the damage normally was 180. So let's take a look at with the announcer. You're doing 310, so, and that's, yeah, that damage, and that's all with a light screw pile driver. No part as to what makes the V-trigger so catastrophic and dangerous is the fact that you can be able to combo into it off of your normal attacks. So let's see if I can be able to, there we go. And that still did more damage than just the regular screw pile driver. And then looking at his V-trigger, this allows him to shield himself from certain attacks. This lets him take white damage instead of regular damage. And if you miss the first time with your FPD, don't worry, you still have one bar, you still have your bar to do it. If you screw it up, you lose half your bar, which is not necessarily bad, but the damage is still just insane. But yeah, when like with certain things, when you learn a character further, you can do that. You can look into what does work, what doesn't work. Now let's take a look at real quick what his critical art is, which is the Bolshoi Russian suplex. So you're doing 2 360 motions in a row. One of the best ways to do this, if you're just learning the character, if you're just learning a 360 character, is you want to jump and then start your 360 motions while you're jumping. And you can do kind of slow, as you saw with how I did it on here. I went real simple. But to be able to do it while you're on the ground, you can in fact buffer that from a dash, which is what some players can do. I'm not going to be the best at it, so forgive me ahead of time if I screw this up a billion times. Okay, cool. First time. So you can in fact buffer that from a dash. The reason being is because one of the more technical parts of this is your framework. So you can, as you're in your dashing animation, you have that entire buffer time to go into your 720 motion, or your 360 motion. And using that is a great tool to help with really destroying somebody's day. But the more you learn about the character, and the more you can learn about these kinds of these ways to experiment with how to use certain aspects and techniques on the character, the more you can learn about how to use your character more effectively. You can also look at a lot of professional players that do use some of these characters to help further understand how to use the character at a better level. Like with Zangief, you can see his standing light punch is not that good, but his crouching light punch is great. Standing light punch has not that great of range, but crouching, great range, and it does a decent amount of pushback, which can make things safe for you. But it's primarily the main thing to learn about when you're learning a character in general. The character, like my main character that I use, Colleen, I went through this entire spiel in learning how that character works inside and out. There are still some things that I don't really use with her, but that's more particularly because of like the way that I play. The one thing to learn is that just because a character has all the tools, you personally may not know when or how they all work in that moment, and that's perfectly okay. But it's good to know that the tools are there for the situations that come in hand. So let's take a look at seeing what I just did there, seeing how you can combo with his B skill, and the damage is monstrous. And as you can tell here, this is the heavy version. It does 220 damage. So let's take a look at what this does as raw damage, or uncomboed damage. And we see here is okay. But that is going to be the most important thing that is the primarily most important thing to learn about with a lot of characters. And hopefully if you guys have learned anything from this can help you understand when you want to learn a new character, how to hit the lab properly with them. This was a little bit of a rushed thing, and I kind of apologize for that. If you guys want, leave a comment. If you want to subscribe. I'm not holding anything against you. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Until then, in the words of Llama Sensei, Llama stay. Wait, how do I turn this off? Shit. How do I stop this?